بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما وليكم الله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. This ayah that we're beginning our discussion with today says, surely your friend, your wali, is Allah, His Prophet, and those who keep faith. Those who take up and stand up for prayer and give sadaqah while they are in a state of ruku. This ayah specifically in Surah Al-Ma'idah verse 55 is unanimously agreed upon that the personality who is referenced as the one who, when he is praying, gives zakat in the state of ruku is none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'minin. In terms of authentic narrations, no one can deny here that Allah has ordered you and I and has informed you and I that our wali is none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib. And for us to discuss Amir al-Mu'minin is not a strange topic, because of his fadail are such that even our Prophet used to extol his fadail. Throughout history, we have seen volumes and volumes and numbers of works that have extolled the virtues of Amir al-Mu'minin, and still they are insufficient to describe him. They are insufficient to describe the status of Amir al-Mu'minin. So obviously when we sit in one majlis for 30 minutes, we cannot extol all the virtues of Amir al-Mu'minin. Yet we make dua that inshallah through this majlis that we extol some of his virtues that increase in our heart the love of Ahlul Bayt. Amir al-Mu'minin was such a personality that they say throughout history we have never seen someone who was such a brave warrior. At the same time he was a humanitarian. At the same time he was a statesman and knew politics. And at the same time he was the greatest of worshippers. They said, how did such alternating and polarizing characteristics unify themselves in one personality? We can't understand. We can't understand. If we were to take a look at the life of Amir al-Mu'minin and discuss his bravery, and discuss the different aspects of how Amir al-Mu'minin was a support for Islam, we would look at multiple different examples, but for today, we'll mention one briefly in the event of Khaybar. Now understand, the Battle of Khaybar is very significant and important in the history of Islam. When we look at the Battle of Khaybar, we see that politically and structurally for the government of Islam and Muslims, the financial support that was necessary for the Muslims to succeed as a political entity and as an empire came from the Battle of Khaybar. If we take a look and we see the Battle of Khaybar takes place after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which was seen as the loss for the Muslims, that the Muslims, instead of standing up for their right, have submitted to the mushrikeen and now are weak. And through the conquering of Khaybar, we see that the Muslims said, no, truly we are stronger than anything you have ever seen, and we have more might than you have ever seen. The conquest of Khaybar also demonstrates that in the situation where others were invalids and incapable of defeating Khaybar and defeating the forts of Khaybar, where the true strength of Islam lied. The event of Khaybar was also the announcement from the Prophet, from one of the many announcements, where he demonstrates that tomorrow I will give the flag of Islam to the one whom Allah loves and His Prophet loves. It was the demonstration that the people prayed all night to attain this status, that maybe we will be the ones whom Allah loves and whom the Prophet loves. Because such a high caliber was not given to anyone else. We see it is from amongst the events of Khaybar is one where we see the Holy Prophet curing the sickness of Amir al-Mu'mineen and showing one of his own miracles. We see the event of Khaybar as showing the strength of Amir al-Mu'mineen, where he takes the champion of the Jews, Mihrab, and cuts him in half. And we see one example of the strength and bravery of Amir al-Mu'mineen that is often contested as the removing of the door of Khaybar and giving victory to the Muslims. Now this door of Khaybar, the door of the fort of Al-Qudus, which was the primary fort in the valley of Khaybar, was such a door that some historians narrated it would take 10 men to pick up this door. And Amir al-Mu'mineen took it with one hand and used it as a shield. Other narrations say that this was such a door that when 70 men gathered together and they tried to lift this door, they couldn't lift this door. Now some people contested, they said that these narrations that say 70 people couldn't lift this door are excessive. These are people just praising Ali ibn Abi Talib. These are people just saying that his strength was such that it was unbelievable, to show that the champion of Islam was such a great personality. To say that he was something more than he really was. And they say Ali was just a very strong man because he used to work in the fields, he used to work out excessively, or that he was partaking in military exercises. So therefore it was his strength that any man could have. Maybe he was as strong as 10 men. It's sufficient for us to say this. We say, no, this is not sufficient. Before I tell you of one of the mu'jizat of Amir al-Mu'mineen that will show you his true strength, I will tell you what our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says about Amir al-Mu'mineen on the day of Khaybar. When Amir al-Mu'mineen returns victorious after defeating the Jews at Al-Qudus and Al-Khaybar, he comes back. Rasulullah says, "Oh Ali, if I was not worried that people would say about you what they say about Isa ibn Maryam, I would tell the people your characteristics in such a way that they would take the dust from under your feet as a tabarruk. And they would take the water from your wudu as a source of cure for their illnesses. Ali, your status is such that the water from the water that you use for wudu has shifa in it." But as I fear that the people will raise and say about you things which are inappropriate, I can't extol all of your virtues, Ali. But what I will say that is sufficient for you and is the greatest of your virtues and is sufficient to describe you is that you are the same as myself. Anta nafsi ya Ali. You are my soul, ya Ali. So when we talk about Amir al-Mu'mineen, his greatest virtue is that rahmatul lil alameen, the greatest of all creations, refers to him and says that Ali, you are my soul. You are a piece of me. These are the virtues and attributes of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. It is not possible to say that we give him greater virtue than our Holy Prophet, because all of his virtues come from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We need a proper salawat if we're going to continue the majlis al-Amir. So now, Ya Ali. So now, when we address the idea that people criticize the strength of Amir al-Mu'mineen and say that no, the door of Khaybar was not so heavy. No, his strength was that of any normal human being. I recount to you a situation during the time of the Khilafat of the first of the Khalifas, the first of the usurpers. His Sayf al-Islam was Khalid ibn Walid. Khalid ibn Walid was such a personality who truly had hatred in his heart for Amir al-Mu'mineen and looked for many attempts to try and harm Amir al-Mu'mineen. On one such event, we see that the usurper, the Khalifa, sends Khalid ibn Walid at the head of an army and sends him from Medina on a task. It's narrated that as Khalid ibn Walid was feeling very proud that he was in charge of an army and he was leading an army out, and that behind him were hundreds of men listening to every command of his word, he was walking out and riding out on his horse feeling very proud of himself. In this situation, he saw Ali ibn Abi Talib returning back to the city of Medina. And this is narrated by Ibn Abi Hadid, who is a writer of Sharh Nahj al-Balagha, who is amongst the Mu'tazila and the Sunni, Ahl Sunnah. This is a Sunni narrating this. This is not me narrating this. Not one of our Shia authors. He says, Khalid ibn Walid, seeing Amir al-Mu'mineen return to Medina alone, without any weapons, without any support, thought it was a great opportunity for him to attack Ali. Thought it was the perfect opportunity for him to strike down Ali ibn Abi Talib, because he had a whole army behind him and Ali was alone. So Khalid, what he does is he has in his hands a lance. He lowers his lance and charges Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. When he charges Ali ibn Abi Talib, the army looks and says, where is our commander going? What's going on? Khalid takes his opportunity, lowers and charges Amir al-Mu'mineen. The narrators write that Amir al-Mu'mineen in one single instance takes the lance from Khalid's hands, pulls Khalid from his horse, takes the lance and wraps it around the neck of Khalid ibn Walid and walks away. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, as the army catches up to Khalid and they see his condition and they walk past Ali ibn Abi Talib looking at him like, what did you just do? They go to Khalid and they say, what is wrong with you? What did you do? He says, stop talking to me and get this off my neck. Now an army of men at the beck and call of Khalid tries as much as they can to remove this lance from the neck of Khalid, and they say, Ya Khalid, we cannot bend this metal. There's nothing we can do. So Khalid goes back to the Khalifa, and when he goes to the Khalifa, he can't tell the Khalifa that I attacked Ali ibn Abi Talib. So he says, oh Khalifa, Ali ibn Abi Talib saw me on the way and he attacked me and he did this to me. The Khalifa says, did I not tell you that you cannot fight Ali ibn Abi Talib? Did I not tell you you are no comparison for Ali ibn Abi Talib? Of course this was going to happen to you. So the Khalifa goes through and calls all of the blacksmiths in the city of Medina to remove this from the neck of Khalid. All of the blacksmiths, they come and they say, there's nothing we can do. The Khalifa says, why not? He says, because to remove this metal, we will have to heat the metal. To heat the metal, we will have to put it in the furnace. If we put this metal in the furnace, Khalid's head is going in the furnace, and then there's no point in removing the metal. There's nothing we can do. But I tell you, there is one in the city who can help you. The Khalifa says, who? They say, call Ali ibn Abi Talib. Khalifa. Ya Ali. The Khalifa says, why? The blacksmiths say that Ali has in his hand the same power that Dawood alayhi salam had in his hand. Dawood alayhi salam was a Nabi who could work metal with his bare hands, who made the armor, who originated the chainmail. The same power, because Ali is the Khalifa of all of the Anbiya. There is no power that the Anbiya had that is absent from their Khalifa. So Ali ibn Abi Talib had the ability to remove this the same way he had the ability to wrap it. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad. So this Khalifa then has to call on Amir al-Mu'mineen and beg Amir al-Mu'mineen to remove this from the neck of Khalid. Now you and I can say whatever we want about the door of Khaybar and saying that any sportsman or anyone who is incredibly strong could move the door of Khaybar. But you and I cannot say that there exists a man in humanity who by going to the gym or being a sportsman can wrap and unwrap metal from around a man's neck. Thus, when we talk about the strength of Amir al-Mu'mineen, don't think it is the strength of a normal person, because Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam himself says that I did not remove the door from Khaybar and throw it 40 meters from the strength of my body. It was not the strength of the food and the nourishment that I eat that gave me the ability to throw this door 40 meters. But rather it was the strength of Allah and the yaqeen from the faith of Allah that I have that gave me this ability. In the same instance that we see these aspects of Amir al-Mu'mineen, when we turn and look at other parts of his life, we see other amazing and strange things that we cannot understand. This same personality, Qambar says, one day I was walking through the city of Kufa with Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he went and we walked past this house and we could see inside that there was a woman who had with her her orphans, and they were hungry and they were crying from hunger. And the woman, to try and appease the children, she had put a pot of water on and was letting the pot of water boil as if to say, I am cooking for you, don't worry, you will have food soon. Looking at this condition, Amir al-Mu'mineen said, I will take care of them, I will bring food for them. And Qambar says, later in that day, I accompanied Amir al-Mu'mineen when he lifted a sack of rice, flour, wheat, and oil, and he went to the house of these children. Now when we were going, I said to my master, I said, oh my master, let me carry this burden for you. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I wish to receive the benefits from Allah of carrying this burden. I want the reward of this action, let me do this action. Qambar says, I went with my master, we entered this house, and we gave them the food. And then after the food was cooked and the children had eaten, he says, I saw something very interesting, that I saw my master playing with the children. I saw my master playing with the children. Qambar says, he says, when we left, I said to my master, he says, I saw something very strange today. I understand some of what I saw, but there are some things I don't understand. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, ask me. He says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I understood that when you insisted on carrying the weight of the food yourself, that you wished for the reward from this action. I understand you wanting to bring them food, but what I don't understand, my master, is why was it that you were on your hands and knees, making the sounds of a sheep to play with the children? Amir al-Mu'mineen on his hands and knees, playing with children, making the sounds of a sheep. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I didn't just want to feed these children. I saw them so sad, I wanted to remove that sadness from them, and I found no better way than to play with them. Yani, from one aspect we see a warrior that has no equal, and on the other side we see the man who is the greatest of creation after Rasulullah on his hands and knees playing with children, making the sounds of a sheep. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is the Amir al-Mu'mineen that when the second Khalifa Mal'oon is about to die, he says, I wish that Abu Ubaidah al-Jarrah had been alive, that I would give him this Khilafat. Now in the event of Saqifa, there were three personalities present who were responsible. The first Khalifa, the second Khalifa, and this third person, the grave digger, Abu Ubaidah al-Jarrah. So the second Khalifa says, if he had been alive because he was the usurper with us, I would have given him this authority. But now that he is not here, I don't know what to do with this. So someone said to him, why don't you give this authority to Ali ibn Abi Talib? The second Khalifa says, him? Do you not see? How can I give the Khilafah to one who laughs and jokes with the people? Who laughs and jokes with the people. Yani, from amongst the characteristics of our Imam, who was the master of everything that was created, who was Hujjatullahi ala al-Arab. He used to joke with the people and had a very kind demeanor. The one who had absolute authority on this earth was kind to the people. We used to play with the people, be polite to the people. This is a sign for you and I that when we want to be the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, let our tongues not be hard with others. Let not us be of a callous personality that is difficult to approach. Do not imagine that being religious means that it is improper for you to smile. Do not imagine that it is improper for you to laugh when you want to be called the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now during this time we have to remember that our Imam was the subject of great persecution as well too. That Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan had set an institution that was responsible for the cursing of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Muawiyah had under his authority at one point in time 70,000 pulpits like this, from which everything began with the cursing of Ali ibn Abi Talib. To the extent where Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he becomes shaheed and the news reaches Sham, and it is said in Sham that Ali ibn Abi Talib was made shaheed while praying, people said, what? Ali ibn Abi Talib used to pray? Ali ibn Abi Talib used to pray? They could not believe it because of the lies they had been told about our master. The public had been polluted against our master Amir al-Mu'mineen to such an extent that even Iblis himself used to extol before them the status of Amir al-Mu'mineen. If you recite a salawat, I'll share with you. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Iblis himself narrates, he says that once I was on the earth in the shape of a man called Abu Marrah, who was an old man. Iblis says I would walk amongst the people in the shape of this Abu Marrah. He says, in one instance as I was walking around, I heard some people talking ill of Ali ibn Abi Talib. When these people became aware of me passing by them, they turned to me and they asked me, did you hear our conversation? Iblis says, yes, I heard your conversation. And I am surprised at you that you speak such ill words of your master. They said, what is your name? He said, my name is Abu Marrah. They said, oh Abu Marrah, do you count yourself amongst the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib? He says, no. My name is from amongst the enemies of Ali ibn Abi Talib. But still I would like to count him as my friend, as he is the master of all of you. They said, how can you say to us that he is our master, and still you call and you say that you are his enemy? He says, did you not hear the Prophet say, Man kuntum mawla fahadha aliyun mawla? How can you deny that this is your master? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So they said to him, oh Abu Marrah, if you count yourself as such amongst his enemies, yet you extol his greatness, then tell us some of his qualities that make him so great that you even as his enemy have to admit his greatness. Abu Marrah, Iblis says, I'll tell you. He says, I was from amongst the creations on this earth at the time, and I spent 12,000 years on this earth worshipping Allah. And then Allah destroyed all of the people that were on this, all of the beings that were on this earth with me, and left me on this earth alone. And then I complained to Allah about my loneliness on this earth. This is Iblis speaking. And I asked him to raise me to the heavens, and he raised me to the heavens. And then I spent 12,000 years worshipping with the angels in heaven. When I was in the heavens worshipping with the angels, there came a day when this nur passed us in the heavens as we were worshipping. Looking at the beauty and the amazement and the inspiration of this nur, all of the angels that were in me fell into sujood at the greatness of Allah for creating such a nur. And when we fell into prostration, when we raised ourselves, the conversation amongst the angels began that maybe this was the nur of some great Nabi that Allah had created. And a caller called out in the heavens that, no, you are wrong. This was the nur of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So even I as Iblis cannot deny the status of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Who are we to criticize and curse and speak ill of our master? The one who Iblis, who is your and I's open enemy, has no ability to criticize. But it was because of these people who kept hatred in their heart for Amir al-Mu'mineen that the same Ibn Abi Hadid who wrote the Sharh of Nahj al-Balagha narrates, he says when Ali ibn Abi Talib left this world, there were not 20 people in this world who loved Ali ibn Abi Talib. It says the whole world was an enemy of Ali ibn Abi Talib when he left this world. There was no one. This is why when we take a look at the wasiyat of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he says to Imam Hassan alayhi salam in his wasiyah, "Oh Hassan, oh Hassan, when I leave this world, I want you to do my ghusl and Hussein to help you. And then in the middle of the night, I want you to take my janazah. Because my master was so afraid of what the people would do to him, and there was so much hatred for my master in this world, that even the mark of his grave could not be left on this earth. You and I, we go to Najaf al-Ashraf and we visit the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I tell you, we are the fortunate ones. There were many generations of Shia until the time of our 6th Imam who did not even know where the grave of our master was. Who couldn't go to the grave of Ali ibn Abi Talib because of how much the people hated my master. This is that night, this is the night of difficulties. This is the day of difficulties. That when Amir al-Mu'mineen is about to leave this earth, he says, he passes out for an instant, and when he wakes up, he says, if you had seen what I have seen, you would be pleased as well. They said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what have you seen? He says, I have seen the Holy Prophet calling to me and saying, oh Ali, join me. Oh Ali, I am waiting for you. Fatima is waiting for you. Come to us, Ya Ali. After this, a few minutes later, we hear the narrations that Amir al-Mu'mineen left this world. And Jibreel called out from the heavens, he says, on this day, the supporter of Islam has left you. On this day, we have lost the great support of Islam. On this day, the one who was the best in the supporters of the Holy Prophet has left. O people, cry, weep, O people, that you do not know who you have lost. You have lost the one that when he would go to battle, Jibreel and Mikael would accompany him on either side. This is the day of the darkness in the house of Fatima Zahra. This is the day when there is no nur in the house of the Ahlul Bayt. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain were given instructions, okay, when I die, I want you to do my ghusl, and when it comes time for you to lift my janazah, you and Hussain take the janazah from the back. Jibreel and Mikael will lift my janazah from the front. And then I will give you instructions that you walk out into the desert, leave Kufa. Walk out into the desert until you see a nur that rises from the earth, and that will be your indication where my grave should be. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain say, when we started walking, we walked some distance, and after which we saw this nur. When we went, we removed some stones and we saw that Allah had already prepared the grave for Amir al-Mu'mineen. When we looked within the grave, we saw that there was a gift from Nabi Nuh alayhi salam. And this is a gift from Nuh alayhi salam to Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is a shield that is given as a gift to Amir al-Mu'mineen from Nuh alayhi salam. Imam Hassan thanked Allah and said, oh Allah, we thank you for the blessing that one such as Nuh used to remember our father. When they buried Imam Ali alayhi salam and they started to walk back, they said that we heard crying in the middle of the night. We heard weeping. And Imam Hassan says, as I was the Imam of the time, it was my responsibility to uncover what was the cause of this weeping. He says, when we went close, we found a house, an old house in which there was an old man who was sitting alone and weeping excessively. And we asked the old man, why are you crying? He says, I miss my friend. There was one who would come to me every night and bring me food and bring me water and sit with me and keep me company. It has been 3 days now, he has not come to see me. I am alone in my house. Imam Hassan says, who was this man? He says, I am blind, I never saw him. Can you describe some of his characteristics to us? No, I can't. The only thing he would ever do when he would come to sit with me is he would do the tasbih of Allah and the hamd of Allah. And he would always be busy in the dhikr of Allah. When I would ask him his name, he would say, he would not tell me his name. He would sometimes say, I am a stranger sitting with a stranger. I am a poor man who sits with a poor man. I have no sifat greater than this. The blind man says, but I do remember one thing, that when this muhsin of mine, when this friend of mine would come and he would do the tasbih of Allah, I would notice that the stones and the walls of my house would do tasbih with him. The stones of my house and my walls would answer his tasbih in hamd of Allah. Imam Hassan says, "Eh ghareeb, ye mere baba ki sifat tumne bayan ki hai. ये मेरे बाबा अली की सिफत है, अब उनका इंतजार ना करना, वो शहीद हो गए, वो दुनिया से चले गए। बूढ़े बाबे ने पूछा, कहा कि क्या हुआ उनके साथ? अश्कल अश्किया कतल अमीर अल-मुमिनीन, the worst of all of creation, killed Ali ibn Abi Talib. Who are you? तुम कौन हो जो हमारे पास आए हैं? फिर बाबा पूछता है, कहते हैं हम यतीम अली हैं, हम अली के यतीम हसन और हुसैन हैं। ये सुन के
تو وہ بوڑھا آدمی اپنے گھر سے روتا یا نکلا، تڑپتا یا گرتا یا۔ امام حسن نے پوچھا کہاں جاتے ہو؟ کہتے ہیں میرا محسن چلا گیا، میرا دنیا میں کیا کام ہے؟ امام حسن کہتے ہیں کہ روتے روتے ہم اس بوڑھے آدمی کو ہمارے مولا ہمارے بابا کی قبر پہ لے گئے، وہ روتا روتا دم توڑ گیا اور دنیا چھوڑ گیا۔ اس کو ہم نے دفن کر دیا مولا کی قبر کے پاس۔ پھر ہم گھر کی طرف لوٹے، رات کے تاریکی اندھیرے میں گھر کی طرف جیسے جیسے جائیں تو ایک آہ و پکا کی آواز بلند ہوئی۔ پھر پریشانی اٹھی کہ یہ کیسی بلا کی رات ہے، اب کون رو رہا ہے اس رات میں؟ گھر کے قریب گئے تو دیکھا ثانیہ زہرا زینب روتی ہے، زینب کے ساتھ ام کلثوم روتی ہے۔ جا کے کہا بہن کیوں روتی ہو، کیا ہے آپ کی وجہ رونے کی؟ کہا ہمارے بابا چھوڑ گئے، ماں کے بعد تو یتیم تھے، اب باپ کا بھی سایہ گیا، باپ کا بستر نظر آتا ہے تو روتے ہیں، مولا کی جان نماز نظر آتی ہے تو روتے ہیں۔ کہیں سے عباس نے آ کے تو سکون دیا، کہیں سے محمد حنفیہ نے آ کے تو پیار کیا، کہیں سے حسن نے ساتھ لگایا تو کہیں سے حسین نے سہارا دیا۔ یا سیدہ زینب آج تو بھائی پاس ہے، آج تو بھائی پیار کر رہے ہیں، لیکن یہ وہ منظر ہے جس کے بعد مشکلوں پہ مشکل آئیں گی۔ یا ثانیہ زہرا وہ دن آئے گا جب حسن کے جنازے سے تیر کھینچیں گے۔ یا سیدہ وہ دن آئے گا جب کربلا میں کوئی نہ ہوئے گا، جب شمر کے تماچے پڑیں گے۔ یا ثانیہ زہرا یہ وہ دن ہے جب کوئی نہ ہوئے گا پاس، عباس نہ ہوئے گا۔ یہ وہ دن ہے جس کے بعد آپ حسین کے لاشے کو زمین پہ دیکھو گی اور اپنے آپ کو اونٹ سے گرا دو گی۔ بھائی کے پیار میں وہ کام کرو گی جو دنیا میں کبھی نہ دیکھا، کہ بھائی کا چہرہ تو نہیں تو اس کے کٹے ہوئے گلے سے پیار کرو گی کہ بھائی نہ تھا میرا۔ وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ أَلَا لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ۔ ماتم حسین۔